TV, here for yet another one of my 2016 NFL Draft Scouting Reports, and today we are looking at Carson Wentz out of North Dakota State, the quarterback that has been rising up draft boards over the last couple of weeks, and I think deservedly so. And I will get into this prospect. I'll give you my strengths, my weaknesses, and all of that. And all of this information is in the description box below, as well as links to some significant plays that back up and showcase evidence as to why I believe he will be the player that I believe he will be. So with that said, let's start with his first strength, and that is his size. He is 6'5", about 230 pounds. You know, we'll see an official weight listing when he goes to the combine, but I'm seeing it listed anywhere from 225 to 235. We'll go right down the middle. We'll call him 230, but good size. I mean, 6'5", 235, 230. I mean, this is prototypical NFL quarterback size, and I'll tell you right now, I compare him a lot to Joe Flacco, who has very similar build in being 6'5". I think Joe Flacco is maybe a little less, maybe 220. I don't think Joe Flacco is that big. I mean, in terms of weight, but I mean, he's tall, and Carson Wentz fits that mold, 6'5". You know, he doesn't really look 6'5" when you're watching the film. He doesn't really stand over people like a Cam Newton does at 6'6", or Peyton Manning does at 6'5", but he's 6'5", you know, so I mean, I'll believe it. I wouldn't be surprised if we go to the combine, it turns out he's only 6'4", but okay, 6'5", I can believe that, and you can see the size on film, and you like the quarterbacks to have that prototypical mold. You never see any of his passes get knocked down at the line of scrimmage, maybe a couple that I counted, but no big deal there. Won't have to worry about that at all. And it has the frame to stay healthy, but with that said, he did have some injuries. He had a broken wrist this season. He had some injuries in high school when he was playing baseball with his shoulder. But you know, I think those are just kind of ligament stuff. I don't think that has anything to do with being small, being big. So I think he's that frame sets him up to have a nice, healthy career, you hope. All right, next we have his arm strength. This is, I think, his biggest strength in terms of what actually matters, because size is nice and all, but this is what actually matters. And arm strength it's important. And people act like it's not important. They say, well, you don't need, well, okay, you have fun with your Alex Smiths. I like my quarterbacks to have arm strength. And really, Alex Smith, he even has a decent amount of arm strength. I don't know why people really love to bang on Alex Smith for that. But anyway, Carson Wentz, his arm strength, you can see the velocity and the zip this guy throws with in the short and intermediate routes even. I mean, we're talking about a lot of corner routes, a lot of curl routes that were run at North Dakota State that he would just absolutely zip the ball to his receivers 10 yards down the field. But even though they're only 10 yards down the field, they'd be even more than that if you triangulate the position, considering he's throwing all the way to the sideline. We're talking about a 20, 30-yard throw, maybe 20, not 30-yard throw to the sideline, 10-yard, 12-yard corner routes. I mean, these are impressive throws that he's putting zip and velocity on. The ball jumps out of his hand. I'm not in love with his release. It's like his release is kind of a downward release since he is a 6'5" quarterback. But hey, it zips out of there. It gets to receivers. It accelerates. Great velocity on his ball. No problem with the arm strength category. And it's his biggest strength as a passer. Next is his accuracy in the short and intermediate range. Again, he zips the ball up there. He gets it there quickly, but he gets it there accurately most of the time. Not all the time. And this is a problem and a weakness that I see, and I'll get into that later. But most of the time, he gets it there quickly, and it is accurate. It is on point. He gives the receivers a chance to catch the ball. Now, occasionally, and I'll get into this in the weaknesses section, sometimes these balls aren't well placed because maybe he's throwing too fast. Maybe the ball's getting there too quick. It looks like he threw to the receiver where the receiver was, not where he was going to be. A little bit of anticipation issues, but for the most part, in the short to intermediate range, specifically on the outside of the numbers, he's really good, and that's, yet again, very similar to Joe Flacco. All right, we have mobility here. Now, this is not similar to Joe Flacco, and this is where I start to compare him a little bit to Ryan Fitzpatrick, specifically the Ryan Fitzpatrick we saw play for the Jets in 2015. He's not going to run for 500 yards as a quarterback, but he might run for 250. He might get you a couple touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns a year, and be someone that you have to look out for to tuck the ball and run and get some yards, maybe even a nice 10-yard, 15-yard touchdown. You have to account for that when playing Carson Wentz, specifically when we're talking about rollouts, bootlegs, play action. Very good throwing the ball off the run, on the move. He sets his feet, he throws accurately, sets his shoulders to the target, throws accurately on the run, on the move. Really like that footwork, and that's why my next strength is his footwork. This is one of the most sound prospects in terms of footwork that I've seen come out in quite a while. Jameis Winston was pretty sound, but he didn't have to move as much as Carson Wentz moves around. And Carson Wentz moves around, sets his feet, and gets these throws out quickly and accurately. I think Carson Wentz's footwork is, one of the most mechanically sound footworks I've seen in a quarterback coming out in quite some time. And it's really a joy watching Carson Wentz and his footwork. I think his footwork is absolutely tremendous and is one of his best strengths. And lastly is his competitiveness. You can see that on these run plays. You can see that when he's leading his teammates, leading the Bison to a couple FCS championships, or maybe they only won one. I don't know. I don't care really. But point is this: you can see the competitiveness, you can see the fiery attitude, and this is something that you want out of your quarterback. Now, there are some weaknesses here. All right, so number one, I don't see many throws over the middle, specifically throws needing anticipation over the middle. I'm talking about the deep posts, the deep in routes. I didn't see many of that at all, and these are the most difficult throws to make in the NFL level. I don't think outside throws are that difficult. Outside throws, really most of the time you're talking about either your receiver is going to catch it, or if you throw it inside more than it should be, then it could be intercepted. But usually your receiver is going to catch it or it's going to go out of bounds. Outside throws are not that hard. Inside throws are an issue. And I saw him got picked off a couple times by a couple linebackers, by a couple corners, a safety one time when he tried to go inside. I don't know why, but when it comes to throws and anticipating throws over the middle, especially late, he has some issues there. Not a lot of inside throws in this offense. You saw a lot of outside screens, a lot of outside corner routes, a lot of outside curl routes. Occasionally, they would go deep down the middle, and they wouldn't find great results. So this is something that I'm looking forward to seeing. What's the difference? What's the problem there? And a lot of people compare Carson Wentz to Marcus Mariota, who came out last year, and I say, what are you talking about? Marcus Mariota is an absolute tactician in the middle of the field. That's where he makes his money, while I believe Carson Wentz makes his money outside the numbers. That's a big difference between these two prospects coming out, and Marcus Mariota is still the same in the NFL in terms of doing most of his work on the inside. Next weakness for me is deep accuracy. Again, this is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. This guy, great arm strength. I noted this earlier, but he's not that accurate deep. So we're talking about great arm strength. Okay, that's great, but why? It's absolutely sometimes just baffling why he's not very accurate deep at all. He overthrows a lot. I supplied some gifts below to show this. Sometimes, you could say, well, okay, his receivers aren't very good. He's playing for North Dakota State. Okay, I'd say fine, but if we're going to use that argument, then we also have to say, well, the cornerbacks of the other team aren't that good. The safeties of the other team aren't that good. You have to anticipate. If your receivers suck, you know they're slow. But if they're going to get open, you see them getting open slowly, you should put it on them accurately. This is something that you have to do. Now, maybe when he goes to the NFL and he gets a receiver like Josh Gordon, Cleveland Browns fans, maybe then you'll see more success with the deep throws. But I did not love his deep throw accuracy, and this included outside and inside. His deep accuracy just wasn't that good despite having great arm strength. And this is where my comparison to Joe Flacco kind of goes off the rails, because Joe Flacco has a lot of issues. But when he needs to throw the ball deep and accurate, he throws the ball deep and accurate. And I don't see that from Carson Wentz. Next, he's kind of clumsy. This is kind of like the mobility I was referring to earlier is kind of like Jameis Winston in terms of mobility as well, where it's kind of a lumbering mobility. It's not really a fluid athlete, kind of clumsy, had some clumsy fumbles, got sacked a couple times, threw the ball here, slammed the ball on the ground, falling down, not great balance. But this isn't a huge deal, but you're going to have some clumsy plays where you're going to be like, man, Carson Wentz, what happened there? Jesus Christ. You're going to have those plays with Carson Wentz. You're just going to have to live with those, because I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. Just doesn't have great balance, I guess. He has nice mobility, but maybe not a great athlete. All right, next we have I don't think he's specifically great at anything. I think his arm strength is very good. I think he'll come to the NFL. He'll have maybe one of the top 10 arm strengths in the NFL. He'll be behind Joe Flacco, behind Matthew Stafford, behind Jay Cutler. But he'll have a nice arm strength compared to everybody. But I don't think he's great at anything. I mean, I said he's good in these short and intermediate throws. I don't think he's great. I think he's good mobility. I don't think he has great mobility. I think he has good size. I mean, maybe this is his best quality is his size, but I don't think that really matters. I don't care what your size is. Can you throw the football? Can you throw it well? So even though he has great size, that's really what you're great at? I mean, I need to see you be great at something. His footwork, okay. And then now we're having a conversation, but then where is his footwork going? Deep throws and throws over the middle where I don't see him doing much of his work. So I don't think he's great at anything. And when we're talking about that, we're talking about the possibility, is this guy going to be a top 5 guy in terms of top 5 quarterback in the NFL? Is he going to be possibly the best quarterback in the NFL one day? I don't see that. I don't see any scenario where that's possible. Now, maybe he just becomes an absolute dissecting beast. He absolutely knows how to read defenses, whatever. He becomes Tom Brady, for example. And that's certainly possible, but I don't think he's necessarily great at anything. And then my last weakness, I actually have a couple more. He has an occasional clunker throw every now and then, and this includes short and intermediate. Sometimes these bubble screens can go behind his receivers. That's a bad situation. You do not want to throw behind your receiver on a bubble screen. That is, oh my gosh, that's a bad situation. And I counted 3 of those. Sometimes he's a little slow making decisions. He goes through his reads, and then goes to the check down a little too late. Linebackers start to creep up, notice that the check down's coming, can come down on the running back and tackle him before he can even make the catch. Sometimes I saw he was locked onto his first receiver, a little slow making the throw. Cornerback came up, picked it off. There are some issues there. Now, I think this will clean up when he goes to the NFL, get some practice in, whatever. But when the speed of the NFL increases and going from North Dakota State all the way to the NFL, man, you're about to witness some more talent, some speed that you've never seen Carson Wentz. So this is something that's a little bit concerning for me, and a lot of predetermined throws at North Dakota State. Now, people said this a lot with Marcus Mariota last year, and I was on that for Marcus Mariota last year. I said he was going to be a future Pro Bowler, and I'm sticking with that to this day. But with Marcus Mariota last year, even though there was a good amount of predetermined throws, I saw a great ability for him to, if he saw that this predetermined throw was completely taken away, to be able to run great. Carson Wentz, again, nice mobility, but not great like Marcus Mariota, for example. But then also, he's a little bit too aggressive sometimes with these. Marcus Mariota is very passive. If he sees someone's not going to get open, he'll just say, okay, screw it, I'm going to run. Carson Wentz, sometimes he tries to fit it in anyway. Just say, I'm going to make this throw. I don't care what's going on. I'm going to make this throw. And then cornerbacks are like, okay, I'm going to pick it off. I'm going to knock it down. This is something that it needs to fix on. I think he will. I think he'll get better. So here we go. My overall grade. Now, keep this in mind. And my grading scale is in the description box below. Quarterbacks are obviously on their own inflated scale. I probably should make a quarterback scale, to be honest with you. Actually, I should. I'll do that, actually. But for this video's sake, I have him being a 78. But what is a 78? Because I did give Ronnie Stanley an 85, Laremy Tunsil an 88, Joey Bosa a 92. But when we're talking about quarterbacks in my scale, which I think I'm going to have to inflate for quarterbacks, I will, right after this video, I'm going to inflate my scale for quarterbacks. An average starter, which is what a 78 is, in my book, is pretty damn good. If you're telling me I can get an average NFL quarterback starter, okay, I'm happy with that. I'm happy taking him with my second overall pick if I'm the Cleveland Browns. I am. Because even though I don't think he'll ever be an Aaron Rodgers, a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, I do believe he can be a Joe Flacco. I do believe he can be a Matthew Stafford, in where you will have to put talent around him. You will. Either a great defense or great weapons around him. And then, once you do that, then you can win the Super Bowl. But he's not going to lead you to the Super Bowl alone. Well, maybe no one can lead you to the Super Bowl alone. Cam Newton's doing it right now, but Aaron Rodgers can't do it alone, it looks like. Peyton Manning needs some sort of help. But really, I think he's going to need more help than others He's not as good as Jameis Winston is. He's not as good as Marcus Mariota. He's not as good as Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, Cam Newton. But can he go to the middle level? Can he be as good as Joe Flacco? Can he be as good as Ryan Fitzpatrick was this year? I think he can. Can he challenge Matt Ryan and Phillip Rivers and Eli Manning in that range of guys that are definitely good? We know they're good, but are they great? No. He could go into that level where borderline top 10. Yeah, I could see him in that level as well. Can he reach the top 5? I don't think so. I don't think we're talking about with Carson Wentz. But I do believe that when we're talking about, hey, we can get a quarterback, and we're the Cleveland Browns who can finally have a quarterback for 10 years. Maybe 10 years is too long. I think 10 years, people always like to say, you can get a quarterback for a decade, left tackle for a decade, this for a decade, that for a decade. A decade's a long time. A decade ago, Donovan McNabb was playing. Steve McNair was alive and playing. Eddie George was playing. A decade's a long time. Can he be the Browns quarterback for a second contract? Okay, I can buy that. So, Carson Wentz, overall, I don't think he's great, but I do believe he's a quarterback, and a lot of NFL teams don't have one. So, we're talking about a quarterback, an NFL quarterback. This is someone that NFL teams that need one should take. Until next time, James Carter TV, I'm out. Peace.